This Old House Radio Hour is supported by the Home Depot. Whether you're tackling a kitchen upgrade, organizing your garage, or building out that back deck, it's important to keep your projects on track. Fast, free delivery from the Home Depot makes it easy to keep things moving in the right direction. If you're just starting out or you're stuck in the middle, the Home Depot has same-day and next-day delivery, so you can get what you need fast. Maybe you need a tool, more materials, some extra paint and supplies, or a battery to power your way through that project. Whatever you're working on, get fast, free delivery from the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Order select in-stock items by 4 p.m., subject to availability. From LAist and APM, American Public Media, it's This Old House Radio Hour. I'm your host, Jen Largis. On today's show, discover how to design a home that supports neurodivergent family members with expert advice from Dr. Susan Faja.
Fluorescent lights can be really distracting because some people can actually perceive that flickering and hear this humming sound that the lights will make, and that can really overload some neurodivergent people.
Author Sloane Crosley on the charm and chaos of her crooked New York apartment.
So most of the things I've written in the past decade or so have been written with one hand gripping for dear life to the desk to keep it from rolling. I know you can lock the wheels, but where's the fun in that?
Catio Bob helps you turn any outdoor space into a feline-friendly fortress. All of this, plus we're answering your home improvement questions at 877-864-7460. Coming up right after the news. Welcome back to This Old House Radio Hour from LAist and APM. I'm your host, Jen Largis. What does it mean to design a home that truly works for everyone? For families with neurodivergent family members, the answer sometimes lies in small, intentional choices. Our guest, Susan Faja, is a researcher and an attending psychologist for Boston Children's Hospital. She joins us to share insights on designing homes that are more welcoming and accessible for neurodivergent family members. Susan, welcome to This Old House Radio Hour.
Thanks for having me.
So what is the definition of neurodivergent?
So this is a term that recognizes the natural differences that we see in the way the brain works. It can really impact the way we think, the way that people learn, and the way that they socialize or interact with other people. Really interestingly, about 15 to 20% of the population is considered neurodiverse. So this is a lot of folks out there. It includes conditions like autism, ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dyslexia and dyspraxia, and sometimes can also include other kinds of psychiatric conditions or traumatic brain injuries.
And how could this affect how a person can experience their surroundings?
For some neurodivergent people, they may be less responsive to sensory input and actually seek it out. And for others, they may be overly sensitive to that kind of input and maybe more bothered or distracted by it. Another big difference is the way that they interact with people. So this may affect how they're experiencing their surroundings as well, including situations where there are more or fewer people. That can really have a big impact. And then it's also important to think about safety. So the way that people on the neurodivergent spectrum may experience their environment may also impact their safety. So an example of this is that some people have a difference in their pain tolerance. And so some of those warning signs that we get from our environment may be less likely to be picked up by someone who's neurodivergent. And so they may need some extra cues that something like a stovetop is hot, for example.
So taking all of this information to our listeners' homes, what sorts of design features can be difficult for someone with sensory processing differences?
So there are a few. Sounds can really make a big impact. We hear a lot of families tell us that the sound of a flushing toilet can be really startling and upsetting, particularly those loud ones in public restrooms. So thinking about the layout of someone's home, having a bedroom that's right near the bathroom, a high activity area like a kitchen could be more challenging. And then sensory input also includes things like how we touch or feel things. So that tactile input that we have can really also have a big impact. Things like soft or smooth surfaces can really be nice for some folks. Some folks who want a little bit more of a sensory snack might like something that's a little bit more stimulating, or a texture that maybe they can get a little bit more tactile input from. So again, there's kind of a range, but just being aware of the impact that that tactile input can have. And then visual input like lighting, smell is one that I think we don't think of, but can really play a key role in terms of how someone who's neurodivergent might process information differently or be impacted by their environment. And then the final one to think about is that sort of sensory social crossover. So if you think about going to a busy store in the holiday season, you're experiencing that sensory social crossover where you're in a noisy, busy place. And there are a lot of social demands as well as a lot of tactile kind of sensory input.
You mentioned lighting. I'm curious, what is stimulating lighting versus maybe soothing lighting?
We think a lot about fluorescent lights. I don't feel like we see these as much anymore, but fluorescent lights can be really distracting because some people can actually perceive that flickering of the fluorescent light. And some folks can even hear this humming sound that the lights will make, and that can really overload sensory systems for some neurodivergent people. So we think instead of lights that are more natural, windows, or thinking about lights that are softer, like LED lighting with a dimmer is lighting that we put into a lot of our rooms that have internal lighting in our building.
What kind of things are in the rooms that help people calm down?
For those calming spaces, we really wanted to think about the lighting. So being able to dim the lighting or have control over the lighting, the ability to remove things that are distracting. So in those rooms to help people calm down, there are very few things, maybe just a squishy sofa. The color of the walls is soothing, not a lot of busy designs or artwork. Another thing that I think really helps with calming space in general is storage. And so we don't have a lot of storage in our rooms that are designed to be calm. But my team, the neurodivergent people on my team, tell me that it's really important to be able to close doors so that they're not distracted by things. And then if it's something that they need to remember, to be able to see it, to open the door and have it be visually organized in a way that they can kind of see without getting overwhelmed.
Are there fabrics or surfaces that people should maybe avoid at home?
There are some textures that we hear about as being more bothersome. So velvet or scratchy fabrics, things like Velcro or microfiber are ones that I hear about. Furniture coverings that have those kind of textures are ones that can really be uncomfortable to sit on or interact with. And then I think sometimes the contrast between textures can also make a difference. So like if you have an edge where there's like a bumpy texture meeting a smooth texture, that can be distracting or bothersome. I think tags are an example of this, where it's like two different kinds of textures on top of each other. And that contrast is really either bothersome or distracting, depending on who you talk to.
How does color play a role in creating calm or ease?
In general, I think we find that soft, kind of natural, solid colors can help people feel more calm. A high contrast design or patterns or wallpaper that are really busy can be incredibly distracting for a neurodivergent person. And then some colors, interestingly, may be associated with specific situations or emotions. So for neurodivergent people who have participated in interventions designed around learning how to regulate their emotion or recognize emotions, certain colors may actually be paired with certain emotions. The stoplight, red, yellow, and green is often used as a way to kind of cue or link up certain emotions. And so those colors may help someone either move in that direction or recognize that direction, but out of context, they may also bring up some of those associations or things that have been learned in intervention.
So how can listeners take these kinds of principles into their own home?
Involving the neurodivergent family member is really key here. So if you know what your home is going to be used for and who's going to be living there, that's a huge advantage in terms of trying to make the neurodivergent family member as comfortable as possible in that space.
Not a one-size-fits-all approach. It has to be customized to the individual.
It has to be.
Very customized. Yep, got it.
Yep. By definition, I think this is really the essence of neurodivergence, that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Well, it's so interesting to think about and so important to consider. We really appreciate you taking the time to share this with us.
Thank you.
That was Susan Faja from Boston Children's Hospital. Let us know if you have questions about making your home more accessible at 877-864-7460. Right now, we're tackling your DIY and home improvement questions. Give us a call at 877-864-7460. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi, this is Tom Meehan from Brookline, New Hampshire. How are you?
Good. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing great.
And what's your question today?
Sure. So we bought this house probably about 7 months ago. It kind of needed a new one of everything, and we've done most of that now. And it's brought us to the attic. And the attic actually has finished floors, and it's all reinforced. But we were looking at the rafters, and so we had mold once upon a time. Looking at its history, they opened up the soffits, and that seemed to have fixed that. But when we finish it, we're not sure exactly. Some people have said foam it. Some people said you need to leave like a gap in the rafters for the airflow. And I really couldn't figure it out myself. So that's the question, is how do we properly finish this?
Absolutely. Well, luckily we have Ross Trethewey, the building engineer for This Old House, and Zach Detmore, a building contractor for the show, both on the line to help.
What's up, Tom? Zach here.
Hey, Tom. Ross here.
Hey, how you doing?
We could do a TED Talk about this topic, Tom. This is one of those things that I think if you just research online, you will never get an answer that really satisfies you on the, should I foam the roof? Should I leave ventilation? But Ross, how do you think we can consolidate this into something that will be helpful to Tom?
Ooh, all right. I'll go high level and just say that there are two ways to insulate a roof. One is a vented roof, one is a unvented roof. And so if you go with a vented roof, you're basically typically doing soffit vents and ridge vents and allowing airflow from the soffit to the ridge to make sure that we get drying on the backside of the sheathing. And then the opposite would be an unvented roof or a conditioned roof, which is basically, most people think that as a spray foamed roof, but basically a way of insulating and air sealing that entire assembly and making the whole attic space conditioned. And you can't do either. You got to do one or the other. So it's an all or nothing approach.
And I think if you can, it's always a better choice to ventilate a roof assembly because it's going to keep your shingles cooler. But typically with old houses, you're in the attic because you're trying to pick up square footage, right? And the rafters may not be so deep that you can fit a lot of insulation in there, especially if you decide to put that venting inboard, so under the roof sheathing.
Tom, what's the status of the roof? Is it fully open?
Yeah, it's pretty open right now, so it's pretty easy to do as far as that goes. My concern also for foaming it is, are we going to get increased ice dam chances? Because, of course, the soffit edges are going to be cold. Everything we foam up to is going to be, sealed, right? So it's going to stay warmer. That means, shouldn't it mean that come, winter again, we're going to have a wonderful place to let all of the, snow and everything, it's going to warm up on the top of the roof first, and then it's going to come down and it's going to, stay on the frozen section there. Shouldn't I come up with beautiful ice dams there?
Well, let's start with ice dams. So ice dams start when you get heat from the house that leaves the kind of let's say your second floor that migrates into the attic space and warms up the backside of the sheathing. So basically like the plywood sheathing that you see up there between the roof rafters, if that warms up, especially near the soffit, near the edge of the roof, when it warms up, it's going to start to melt snow, and that's where ice dams are going to get created. So if you properly vent your roof or properly seal up and spray foam your roof, either one should solve the ice dam problem that you're talking about. We've done it both ways. We've done spray foam on the back. This would be closed cell spray foam in your climate in New Hampshire, but basically closed cell spray foam on the, basically from soffit vent to ridge vent, seal up that entire space, and that's eliminated ice damming. We've also done proper soffit vents with wind chutes up to the ridge vent and eliminated ice damming. So either one can solve it.
All right. I think I'm probably going to go vented then. Though this entire conversation does sound a little Karate Kid-like, karate yes, safe. Karate no, safe. Karate yes, no, squish like grape.
Yeah, it sounds like you can do a vented attic, no problem there.
Go vented.
I think it's vented attic and mini splits later, so I think that's everything I needed.
Boom.
Awesome.
It's nice to have a win sometimes.
Tom, thanks for calling. We appreciate it. After the break, our experts answer more of your home improvement and DIY questions. Call us at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. Coming up on This Old House Radio Hour from LAist and APM. Stay tuned. This Old House Radio Hour is supported by the Home Depot. Whether you're tackling a kitchen upgrade, organizing your garage, or building out that back deck, it's important to keep your projects on track. Fast, free delivery from the Home Depot makes it easy to keep things moving in the right direction. If you're just starting out or you're stuck in the middle, the Home Depot has same-day and next-day delivery, so you can get what you need fast. Maybe you need a tool, more materials, some extra paint and supplies, or a battery to power your way through that project. Whatever you're working on, get fast, free delivery from the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Order select in-stock items by 4 p.m., subject to availability. Welcome back to This Old House Radio Hour from LAist and APM. I'm your host, Jen Largis. Before we get back to your calls, we're opening up the phone lines and playing House Rules. This is a game where we test your knowledge of common DIY and home improvement procedures. No lifelines, no second chances, just you, your instincts, and a shot at glory. Hello, you're on House Rules.
Hi, Jan. This is Mike from Riverview, Florida.
Hey, Mike. So tell us, how handy are you around the house?
I think I can do some things. I try to stay away from electricity, especially around water. But yeah, I can hold my own, I think.
That's sage advice. I think you're going to do just fine.
Thanks.
All right, Mike, so here's how it works. I'm going to ask you 2 multiple choice home improvement questions. If you miss the first one, the game is over. If you get it right, you get to move on to question 2.
Okay.
Answer both correctly, and you will win the ultimate prize, a custom voicemail recording from This Old House's very own Richard Chathui. Does that sound good?
Fair enough. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Mike, let's play House Rules. Here's your first question. Which screws work best for typical outdoor weather? Is it A, copper, B, galvanized steel, or C, stainless steel? What do you think?
I'm going to go with galvanized steel.
All right, you chose B, galvanized steel.
B, yes.
To get the right answer, we asked Zach Detmore, a general contractor for the show, and this was his answer.
All right, the correct answer is C, stainless steel. These are incredibly good at resisting corrosion for exterior use. There's a caveat, though. Stainless steel is soft, so this is not the type of screw you will screw in and screw out without stripping the head. It's not a very dense metal, so treat these screws gently.
Oh, no.
That was my next choice.
Mike, unfortunately, that means that the game ends here, but we appreciate you coming to play House Rules.
All right, thank you.
If you want to play House Rules, call our hotline and ask us your home improvement or DIY question, and you'll be entered into a pool to play House Rules at 877-864-7460. Call now. That's 877-864-7460. Right now, we're tackling your DIY and home improvement questions. Call us now at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460, and we'll match you with the right expert. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hey, Jen, how's it going? Dan Buckley from Detroit, Michigan.
Dan, thanks for calling. What's your question today?
So my question today is about wood siding on an 1888 workman's cottage here in Detroit. I'm currently pulling off some old asphalt siding on the side of the house, and I'd like to restore the wood lap siding. And I'm looking to kind of understand what replacement materials I can look for in terms of wood species and or synthetics that are on the market now.
All right. Well, to answer your question, we have Charlie Silva, a builder for the show, and Zach Detmore, a general contractor for the show, both on the line. Charlie, what do you think?
So I'm just a little unclear on when you're saying you're going to restore what you have, and then there's use alternatives for a man-made product or...
So trim needs to be replaced in certain areas. Some of it was removed when the asphalt was put on in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
So I need to replace those pieces with modern materials, or I don't know if I should be using pine or Doug fir or other kinds of timber out there now. So I'm just trying to understand what kind of wood I would be using to replace missing trim and some of the maybe rotten lap siding that's on the house now.
So let's start with your trim.
Sure.
Depending on the percentage of your trim that needs to be replaced, and I love that you want to restore what you have. Everything always comes down to budget, though. So whether you have 10% of your trim to replace or 90%, if you want to stay with wood to match, then I would use probably a mahogany, a sapele, prime it first before you install it. But I would not use just a pine board.
Okay.
And I do not like taking, whether it's a PVC or the acre trim, doesn't mean you can't do it. I just don't like the two different materials with the different expansion and contraction. And if you do it that way, or whatever you patch, make sure whether you glue the joints or you put something in and protection behind it just so it doesn't fail. So that's number one. And then whatever you have for a siding, I mean, I just match what you have. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you make a good point about the budget. I mean, in a perfect world, there are companies, there's mills, there's a company that makes siding out of fly ash, and they will duplicate the exact profiles you have. If you're doing a whole house, then maybe that isn't that much different than the stock profile cost. But if you're just doing a couple pieces, it can be cost prohibitive when you're comparing it to something that's similar. So there's always a value conversation about when is near enough good enough when you're trying to figure out how to allocate funds. I'm sure there are other parts of this house that need work that also require some money, so you don't want to overinvest too much. But I think what Charlie's saying is accurate, that if you've got wood, you want to butt up to it with wood, but the wood that's on that house is probably like a fir or a cedar, but it's an old growth. It's much more robust than the pine you might just pick up in the store, which then needs to be primed on 6 sides and is just very prone to failure if it gets wet. So I think in general, probably a sapele is the right choice. And if you have woodworking skills, you can sort of mill it yourself to be as close to the dimensions of what you're trying to match, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. This is very helpful. I can look for that mahogany or sapele and start to mill it down myself. So I do appreciate the insight.
Yeah, and one more thing, depending on the siding, the condition of the original siding that you want to save, and how the install on the siding that went on top of it, they covered that for a reason, opposed to painting and repairing it and keeping it going. Take some time to look at the existing siding. Maybe you need to put some flashing in between some butt joints, or just really good prepping and painting. So just don't assume it's all good to go. Flashing around the windows, for example.
Okay, I can do that.
And then Zach made a good point on the thickness when you're milling it yourself. For example, let's say you have 1-inch material in the house, but you can only buy 3/4. You're going to put a filler behind that to get the front face the same. So you don't have to overspend, for example, unless the reveal on the bottom needs to match. But look at it that way, so you don't have to buy 5/4 material. Maybe you only have to buy 3/4.
That's a fantastic suggestion. I was looking at 5/4, so that's a huge savings. Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks, Zach. I really appreciate the insight.
You're welcome. Good luck.
We want to answer your questions at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi there. This is Joe from Mankato, Minnesota.
Hi, Joe. What's your question today?
I have a house. We built it in 2004, and we live in Minnesota, so obviously winters are cold. And the exterior light switches and plug-ins, the ones that are on the exterior walls, always have a lot of cold air coming in through them.
Interesting. Well, we've got our general contractor, Zach Detmore, from the show here on the line. Zach, what do you think?
Hey, Joseph.
Hi there.
That's a great name. That's my middle name.
Oh, that's okay.
Classic. But I can't help you with your house. But at least we can talk about.
You can bond over names.
Bond over names.
We can be name buddies.
Exactly. So tell me this, Joseph. When you built this house, is that fiberglass insulation in the walls you used?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's happening is basically you have a 5.5-inch cavity, and then where these receptacles are, you have like 1 to 2 inches behind the receptacle that's maybe the insulation is sitting behind there. Maybe it's cut around nice and neat, or maybe it's kind of sloppy. and there's nothing behind the receptacle.
When we built the house, I was kind of careful to make sure there was insulation in behind there, thinking about this.
Sure. And I'm sure you did a good job of that. So if that's the case, that you did a nice tidy job, what you're experiencing is more draft related and less insulation related. What I would recommend is sort of a two-part thing. What we would like to do is sort of seal around the box from the outside to keep air from coming in to those holes where the wires enter. So a simple solution for that would be to get some expanding foam that you can get, in like a typical can, and then turn off the electricity to the receptacle, and then poke that straw through the hole where the wire enters, and then just squeeze that nozzle until you get a little bit of that foam coming into the box. You don't want to fill the box, but you want just a tiny bit to show that it's sealing up that around those wires. And that's going to take care of the draft that's leading from the wall cavity into the box. And then you could take a sealant and caulk around the gap between the box and the drywall, and that would seal the draft that's coming in that. So that's my recommendation, if it makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually tried putting some insulation, like the expanding foam behind it, but then I was concerned that I'd read, you could push your drywall out if you put too much in, so I didn't put that much in.
The one you want to use is called door and window, or minimally expanding foam, so it doesn't expand.
Yeah,
as it's not strong enough to bow or push anything out. Yeah, if you can imagine, you want that foam to encompass the wires, because that's the biggest hole in the back. So you basically want to push that straw in probably an inch or two beyond where the wires are, so that it's adding foam to that general area, and it's going to expand and sort of encapsulate the back of the box. But we're not necessarily trying to insulate it. We're just trying to draft stop it. So it's going to be a proper job. But if you take all those covers off, shoot some foam into each of them, and then caulk around the edge, do it production line style, I think you'll have a much more comfortable house, at least when you're laying on the floor next to your receptacles.
Yeah, we can try that. Actually, one thing I found that was helpful was once we had grandkids, we put on the the plugins. You put those little plug-in covers on them.
Yeah,
and that stopped the draft from coming in.
Oh, excellent! Just stick duct tape over the top of them.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for calling. We hope that was helpful.
All right. Thanks, then.
Good luck, Joseph. Take care.
Call us now to have your home improvement or DIY question answered. 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi, my name is Vanessa. I'm calling from Worcester, Massachusetts.
Hi, Vanessa. What's your question today?
So I was just wondering, so I have I believe it's called Parged Fieldstone Foundation that's been painted by the previous owners, and it's looking pretty sad, and it needs some upkeep. And I was wondering how to paint it.
All right. Well, we have Zach Detmore, a general contractor, and Mauro Henrique, the painter for the show, here to help. Zach, you can only answer this question if you can spell Worcester.
I can spell Worcester. That's a trick question, Vanessa. She knows I can't spell anything.
No.
This is one of the first things I had to learn when I moved to Massachusetts. It's very important.
It's called Worcester.
I'm gonna say G.
By a vowel.
All right.
Okay, the foundation is right in Worcester.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they call, right? What is the condition of the foundation right now, Vanessa?
So there is a few areas where the paint is peeling. For the most part, it is pretty secure. It's definitely looking a little, mossy or gray in some areas. Mm-hmm. It was originally painted white.
And any clue what kind of paint that was used?
I have no idea.
No old painting can or nothing, right? And
no.
But when the paint peels like a very thick or is thin?
It's a little bit on the thicker side. It definitely, I know what efflorescence is, and it doesn't look like that.
Okay. All right. Well,
When
Zach,
you peel it, Vanessa, do you see the foundation parging like the cement, or do you see more paint?
The cement.
So let it sit for like another 200 years. It'll all be peeled and then painted. Problem solved.
Right.
It's always so irksome. I have this on one of this rental property I have, and I'm like, oh, I wish it would peel more evenly because I don't want to just paint this area. But some places the paint's really bonded, and it can always be kind of frustrating because you want to bring it all back so you know you have a quality job, but the labor to sort of remove everything where it's well bonded is one of those things that you sort of have to just get out there and scrape and then make a judgment call about sort of where to leave it, or am I barking up the wrong tree, Morrow?
well, that all makes sense. But another question I have is this paint has any sheen, or you already said it's thick when it peels, has any sheen or looks like flat?
Maybe a little bit of sheen, but I'd say probably more flat.
More flat, okay. Well, in this case, it looks like usually when you have like a foundation covered with concrete, you would use like an elastomeric paint, which is elastomeric paint is the one that moves and contracts and expansion as all the material does. And this is also a good quality paint because if there's any moisture that got trapped behind, this paint moves so much and the moisture escapes out. And that's one of the number one problem when you see a foundation that the paint is peeling.
What is an elastomeric paint?
It's a paint that's breathable. It's a paint specific for masonry material. It get a good adhesion to it, and it contracts and expands more than a regular paint that goes on wood.
More than latex?
Yes. But it's also a kind of a thin. It's not thick like regular paint because it gets a good, very good grip into the masonry surface in general, especially foundations.
Is it buildable if she were to chip off the paint in some areas but feel like other areas were already well bonded? Can she sort of build it up to try to create an even look instead of having that chip sort of edge shining, kind of coming through as an indent?
I think it all depends on how much prep or work she's willing to do, but it's doable, yes. But she's going to have to, make sure that surface is not any sheen to it. Like if you can lightly sand or if you can power wash it very lightly and get rid of the sheen, then she can use this other paint on top of that. Because it's all water-based paint. Remember that. Zach, what do you think?
I think what Morrow's saying about the elastomeric paint is great because it's like elastic. It's like a rubber coating, and it does a great job of sealing small cracks, almost like a sealant. Something I learned from Morrow was the 3 P's of painting? What did you say it was?
Oh, my 3 P's?
Yeah, your 3 P's.
Prep, and paint.
Prep, and paint. So I think the thing is you just don't know, Vanessa, how much prep there's going to be. But that's always sort of the frustrating thing with these jobs is how much you want to prep it. But start by at a minimum cleaning it, stripping away everything loose, and then I think, following Morrow's coaching, you'll be good to go.
Make sure you do like a very cool power washing, nice and easy, and scrape all the loose materials, and then go to work.
All right, thank you.
Right.
Good luck.
Vanessa, thanks for the call.
Thank you.
After the break, does your cat long for outdoor adventure? Catio Bob is here to give them the backyard enclosure of their feline dreams. That's coming up on This Old House Radio Hour from LAist and APM. Welcome back to This Old House Radio Hour from LAist and APM. I'm your host, Jen Largis. Coming up, Catio Bob has the blueprint for the perfect outdoor escape your cat will love. But first, we go to New York City, where the bond between person and place runs deep. For writer Sloane Crosley, it's a one-bedroom apartment in a stubborn old West Village building, quirky, cramped, and full of unexpected charm. She reflects on how where you live shapes your work, your routine, and your sense of home.
This is Sloane Crosley, and welcome to my old house. I currently live in the West Village. So I live in an apartment building, but when people find out the cross streets, their eyebrows always go up because they think that maybe I live in a townhouse or something like that, but I do not. I live in, I think it's like a 600 square foot, maybe 650 square foot, one-bedroom apartment. The building was built in the 20s. And not much has changed. It's really hard to find apartments in New York, as everybody knows. To get a deal, you sort of have to find a magician and a monkey and pay them a pile of beans and hope they give you a key. I have been there for about 12 years, which is probably a little bit too long, but I have a decent deal on the rent. When I walked into this apartment, which I found through a friend of a friend, and yet still had to pay, I think, some sort of small fee, I instantly really liked it because it has one of these sort of useless architectural features that you don't see in a lot of post-war apartments, which is this longish hallway that's about probably 8 or 9 feet long that serves no purpose. I guess you could put a bike in there if you were such a person who exercised. It sort of gives the sense of a foyer or an entrance to something that if you just walked into it right away would be a souped-up studio. I instantly fell in love with that. And I also saw it during the spring, and I happened to see it when there was a tulip tree in the backyard that was just exploding in these huge pink blossoms, and it was a beautiful, very peaceful view. The West Village is a cartoonish, ridiculous place to live, being this sort of wealthy, extremely picturesque place. And for those of us who live there, we know how wonderful it can be. The problem with it is that the kind of history it's known for, especially in the early part of this century, is unfortunately Sex and the City. So I live in this sort of unholy triangle between the Pleasure Chest, Magnolia Bakery, and Carrie Bradshaw's house. The actual facade of the house that was used during filming, which actually the owner has just gotten permission to put a fence up. Living in the West Village does not exactly inspire empathy for the wealthy, but I do actually have empathy for the owner of Carrie Bradshaw's brownstone, because even during the pandemic, there were tourists draped at all hours on this woman's stoop. I didn't even understand where they came from, because it's such, I believe the technical term is a snotty little place to live. People get attached to the neighborhoods, I think, to, in a way, divide the city to make it feel small, because it does sometimes feel like such a mass. And that's where so much of our pride comes from. But if you think about Los Angeles, I'm going to butcher this, but it's Truman Capote or Dorothy Parker, or it's apocryphal entirely. But the quote is something like, Los Angeles is 72 towns in search of a city. New York does not have that problem. And so we almost have to make our towns from this mass, chipping it off like a giant ice block. My life is pretty much total chaos. In this 600 square foot apartment, there's a lot of assumption that writers have a library, and that's a generalization that I would really love if it were true. It would be nice if I didn't hear my downstairs neighbor, who is hard of hearing, who likes to play his television and show tunes very loudly to the point where I can hear them through the kitchen floor. He is constantly screaming at Alexa to do things, and then the other day I realized that I really can hear him. So I performed a little experiment, and I got down on my kitchen floor near the heating pipe in the kitchen, and I screamed, "Alexa, turn off," and it worked. It would be nice, I'm sure, to live in a place that was a little more sealed. It's got a very charming moldings, but it has a real lack of right angles. So at some point I purchased this very fancy rolling chair, and I get it up to my apartment and I sit down, and I just rolled straight across the floor because it's at an angle. So most of the things I've written in the past decade or so have been written with one hand gripping for dear life to the desk to keep it from rolling. I know you can lock the wheels, but where's the fun in that? Or I'll write at this tiny little kitchen table I have that faces a blank wall, and I often write on the floor, which is murder on the back. The nature of my apartment at night, you're going to have to forgive me because I don't know the architectural terms beyond molding, but the walls of the living room where a bookshelf would go are not really suitable. They're not flush. So you have this very pronounced molding where you can actually put a book on top of the molding and only have, let's say, a hardcover book, have an inch of it stick out. It's just sort of this ribbon of books that go around my apartment, and that's where I keep the majority of my books, also in piles, in various piles. I'm forced to do this quirky thing. I was backed into it by the nature of the apartment. They go all through my bedroom, mostly in my living room, and so even the organization of those books is partially dictated by the molding. So where the molding is secure or where it's thicker, you get different kinds of books that go there. I actually, strangely, because I've lived in the apartment for so long, I know where everything is, but it's not organized at all. But it's aesthetically appealing. That's the other thing people comment on when they come in. They notice how the books are wrapped around the entire apartment. There's the home is where the heart is cliche. America is terrible, New York is difficult, my apartment is small, but it's where all my stuff is. All my stuff is there. I've lived here for 25 years, so I'm a bit of a nester. You become attached to what you know. And maybe because life outside your doors can be a bit challenging here, you never know what's going to happen on the subway. It's financially prohibitive. There's all these inconveniences and crowds and unknowns. I think returning again and again to what is known is both very helpful, just to have some control in the experiment. But that can also be very indulgent. You should move. You should live in different neighborhoods and not forget that you're living, in the greatest city on the planet.
That was Sloane Crosley. The paperback edition of her New York Times bestselling memoir, Grief is for People, is out now from Picador. At This Old House, no project is too big or too small for us to handle. However, some jobs require a specialist that is the best at what they do. Today, we are going to create the ultimate catio for your feline friend that will keep them safe outdoors and give them freedom on your terms. Joining us today is Robert Johnston, better known as Catio Bob. Before he became one of the most well-known catio builders in the country, Bob constructed all sorts of animal enclosures for zoos, research facilities, and kennels. Now he's here to share his expert tips and insider tricks to help you create the perfect catio wherever you call home. Catio Bob, welcome to This Old House Radio Hour.
Thank you, Jen.
So Bob, is it possible to build your own catio?
Oh, absolutely. And I encourage everybody to do so. I mean, just, for the benefits of your cats. I mean, if you're going to build your own catio, I suggest you do your research designs. Anybody, if they have the skills and the tools, can replicate what I do.
Can you tell our listeners why it's important for cats to have a space of their own?
Oh, the mental stimulation is worth its weight in gold.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people that have had households where they've had 3 or 4 cats inside, and they said that, the pressure and the intensity between the cats is so intense because they're shoved together. And they said once they got a catio, it's like, oh my God, it took all the pressure off. The cats had somewhere to go, and it was all brand new territory that nobody has claimed, and they can go out there, just hang out and just enjoy everything, that they didn't have before.
So give me a visual here. I'm looking at a catio. What does it look like?
Well, it looks like basically like a screened-in porch, basically.
Oh.
Basically, all I do is make a screened-in porch on steroids, like what we call it.
That sounds lovely. Is it possible to create a catio in your home? Say, what if you live in something like an apartment?
Cats, naturally, most of them like to be up high. So we got all kinds of different options for, apartment dwellers. We've got like the mini window catio. We can make them small enough to fit on a balcony, a porch balcony, and stuff like that.
And so you're designing a catio. What should our listeners keep in mind? How do they decide what they need?
Well, first of all, you have to, how many cats do you have? And that's going to create how much space you will need for them to be comfortably in a catio.
What if you have 2 cats?
2 cats, you can do anything from like a mini window, and you can do anything in between. I mean, from that size, the mini window catio, the spatial size is 4 by 4 by 2 foot deep.
So if someone wants to build their own catio, where do our listeners start?
Well, like I said, first of all, you got to determine what size you're going to need. And then you're going to have to decide on location. And some of those determining factors are going to be where they're going to access the catio from. Is it going to be window? Is it going to be from a door? Is it going to be through a wall in the house or what have you? And that's going to be the next thing determines, where you can put your catio. Mm-hmm. And then from there you can decide on how big you want to make it and everything else. But the main thing is to figure out where the cats are going to access it from.
What kind of framing structure do you use to make this sturdy enough so that it can sort of stand the test of time?
Well, we use standard 2x4 construction.
Okay. Is it anchored down into the ground at all?
Well, when we do it on a cement slab or patio, we'll throw a couple of cement anchors, a couple of Tapcon screws.
Yep.
We'll put a couple of Tapcon screws down into the ground just to keep the wind from blowing it away. I mean, there's not much wind resistance to them, but they do have a metal roof on it, and if they got some wind up under it, it would pick it up.
Do you ever have a situation where someone needs to put it offset a little bit? Is there any solution for that?
Everything you can imagine under the sun. I put one over a lady's kitchen window, but she didn't want the cats going in and out of the Catio over her sink.
Mm-hmm.
And around the side of the house and went up the side of the house to another window, and they were able to access it from there through a tunnel that took them back to the Catio. We found out over the last few years that the tunnels are the bomb.
Yeah.
Cats absolutely love them. I don't know why, but they just do.
Well, it feels like it gives you a lot more flexibility when you're deciding where to put it if there's not an obvious location right there connected to your home. Are there any materials that you should avoid if you're making a Catio?
My major one, chicken wire.
Do
not use chicken wire for your cat's enclosure. One thing is, I've seen some pretty aggressive cats that have actually tore through chicken wire, and it's nothing for a coyote or a coon or a possum to get through chicken wire. And we use a heavier duty mesh that we guarantee up to, but not including bears.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's an important note. Is there anything else that you need to do to make sure that the Catio is safe for your cat?
Yeah, the coatings is another thing that's quite an important thing. People just think you just coat it with a coat of paint and you're done. But with cats and stuff, you need to use a low VOC content paint so it's not toxic to the cats. So that's what we use, is a low VOC paint coating on all our Catios. And basically it's the same paint you use to paint your deck with.
Okay.
So it's waterproof and everything, and you can wash it and keep it sanitized.
What is the bottom floor structure of a Catio?
Now we do several things. We don't advocate dirt or grass.
Mm-hmm.
For reasons. They'll end up using it as their bathroom, and parasites can transfer across the grass, and also predators can dig in and they can dig out.
Yep.
But we use either a mounting platform that we build ourselves, if there's no substrate like an existing deck or a cement patio. We'll also, if they don't have either of those two, we'll create a mounting platform for it to sit on.
And if it is a bigger structure, how do you make it accessible for cleaning?
Well, it's pretty easy to keep them clean. It's just like you would maintenance on your deck. You just kind of light soap and water and hose them off. If you got some stubborn spots, you scrub them a little bit. But
what are some toys or obstacles that you can put in a Catio for stimulation?
Oh, we got all kinds of fun stuff you can put in a Catio. We got Heidi boxes for them. We've got sisal poles, full height sisal poles. We got 4-foot sisal poles. We got floating steps. We got fire hose hammocks. We've got bubble bowl beds. We got all kinds of fun stuff for them. There's all kinds of ways you can customize your Catio to fit your abilities of your cat. I mean, one of the things we do is we make sure that none of the jumps are more than 2 foot apart. That's a height requirement because we always put our walkways and platforms and ramps at the 2 foot, the 4 foot, and the 6 foot levels.
Okay. And if you have a more senior cat, what do you do to make sure that it's able to be traversed by them?
We make sure we put in plenty of ramps and floating steps and stuff, so they make sure that the senior cats and handicapped tripod cats can also make it all the way to the top access areas.
So a continuous ramp can help a senior cat, whereas maybe a more active cat would be more stimulated by having the floating stairs that are a little far apart, require a little athleticism.
Yeah. But we've tried to make sure to do accommodations for any kind of special needs that they have for their cats.
Now, if you have an air-conditioned house or if it's, a little bit cooler and you're heating your home, how can the cats maybe get between the catio and the house through a window without just leaving it open all the time?
So we use what's called a window insert pet door.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is you basically open your window, put this in there, shut your window down on it, and you got an instant pet door. The selection switch on the door on these are 4 ways. They can be free swinging so they can have free access anytime they want, or you can have totally locked so you don't want them to go out there.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 settings are in only or out only.
Oh. Well, I think this is such an interesting topic, and it's such a nice way to give your cat access to the outside in a safe way. So we really appreciate your time, and I hope that everybody considers designing and building one of these for their members of their family who are feline and could really use a space of their own.
Yeah, most certainly. But don't think of a catio as just for cats. We do a lot of what we call shared space catios, which are just basically a big screened-in porch for you and your cat.
Yeah, I love that. So you can spend time with them outdoors as well, safely.
Yeah, I sit in one every afternoon in the back of my house. My whole back area is nothing but a catio.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the advice. And this is such a fun topic to talk about. It's so much imagination involved.
Oh, yeah, there is. There's tons of ways there's no limit to what you can do.
That was Catio Bob. To learn more about catios and to see his work, visit his website at Catio, spelt like patio, catiobob.com. We're nearly at the end of the show, which means it's time for the Simple Fix.
Hi, Jen. It's Zach Detmore. I'm a contractor for the show, and this is my Simple Fix. Need to center a picture on a small wall and you don't have the right tools? My simple fix is, say you have 2 windows and you're trying to center the picture between the 2. Simply walk to the middle, spread your arms out so that you're exactly centered, and press your nose to the wall. Your nose will be roughly center between the 2 windows. Where your nose hits is also the perfect height to mount that picture because it's eye level. All you have to do is make a mark for your hook and you're good to go. No tape measure needed.
We'll see you next week on This Old House Radio Hour. Our show is distributed by and co-produced by LAist Studios and APM, American Public Media. This Old House Radio Hour was created and produced by Ember 20. Listen to new episodes of the podcast every Tuesday on your app of choice. You can follow This Old House on all the socials at This Old House, all one word. We'll see you next week.